guys, I'm Wendy, and this is episode 3 of Just Like You. Our goal is to tell the stories of the queer community, and in doing so, make representation accessible no matter where you live. So our guest today on Just Like You found his voice in doing interviews to raise up awareness for the queer community. He also became the exact successful representation in the queer community that he wished he had seen when growing up, becoming a vice president of financial planning and analysis of a multi-billion-dollar company, and now a business owner with 250 employees within his company. Please welcome Clayton to Just Like You.
Hello.
Hello. We got through the intro.
All right. That was fun.
Yeah. So welcome.
Thank you.
I'm glad we're doing this.
Me too.
Yeah. And I'm even more excited because, again, as I mentioned, the intro, I know you've been talking about how kind of being asked to do interviews, and at first you're like, I don't know. And then you're like, you know what? I like this, and I have things to say.
Right.
So we're excited to hear the things you have to say today, too. So
Great. Yeah. 2 years ago, when we were working on Franklin Pride Festival, we had some controversy from the community, which was really unexpected because it was our third year of the festival, and we had really no meaningful opposition at all the first two years. And so then, yeah, we were in the spotlight, even in the national spotlight for several weeks.
yeah,
So I got
which good.
Yeah.
That publicity is great too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, do you think, I know from the timing that was after the Covenant shooting that had happened in Nashville, do you think that some of that had instigated some of that for people, where they felt like that was somebody from the trans community that was involved in that shooting, and that maybe that's why, being the third year, we were like, well, the first two, like you said, we didn't have any issues?
It's certainly possible because there's when that horrible shooting happened, there were all sorts of crazy rumors flying around.
Yeah.
And I think there was definitely some overlap in the community of our protesters and some of those. But, we don't really know that it was a direct link. But
it fit their narrative at the time, right?
Yes.
So I'm sure they jumped on that to be like, see, this is what we were talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, it was very clear from the comments that were made at the City of Franklin meetings during the public commentary that none of the people who were so agitated had actually been to our festival because they were just saying things that were outlandish.
Yeah.
And,
I had watched some of those. It was actually really hard to watch.
yes, it was hard to be in that room too. It's it was really interesting too because as horrified as we were to hear those comments hurled at us, I think some of our straight allies who are on the board were even more. They had never experienced anything quite like that, and hopefully none of us will ever experience anything like that again. But as far as the name calling, I've heard all that before.
Right. But that is interesting for the allies to kind of feel it and feel that hate and that bigotry and stuff, and just be like, wow, this is what it feels like, and this is the rhetoric of what's being said.
Right. It's very it goes from being abstract to something that is personal. I mean, you feel it.
Oh, sure.
That
yeah. When I watched it, because in kind of preparing for this, and I was looking up the various things that you were interviewed for, and that's where I stumbled across the video of it. I was pretty emotional watching it, especially when Spencer spoke, because I believe at that point he was under the age of 18.
Yes, he was.
And that really was upsetting, the way that he had the manner in which that he handled that was so good. Kudos to him, because I feel like I would have lost it. I would have been so trashy and just cursing, but amazing how, I said, I hear you laughing at me, and that's what can lead to suicides or cause suicide. I just
He's a rock star.
That was emotional. That was emotional. So, well, you know what? One thing I was going to ask, because I wasn't at the first or the second year, Did you guys have drag shows that were going on at both?
Yes.
So it was totally fine those first 2 years also. Interesting.
Yeah, what happened the third year is the state law changed. So
got weird.
yes.
Got real weird.
After the second year, we did have some community members that expressed outrage that we had a drag show, and they were trying to imply that the shows were obscene.
Right.
They weren't. They they used excerpts of videos to and tried to like make it look like that the shows were being performed for young people.
Right.
And everything was rated G. It was totally fine.
Right. Yeah.
But
it's performance.
Exactly.
It's a different type of performance. And like Robert said in one of the interviews you guys did, just walk past it. There's so much other areas in the park to go to. You know, just like even if there's a band that's playing and you're like, I'm not as interested, then go check out the freaking vendors or something instead.
Exactly. Yeah.
You don't have to sit there and watch it.
Well, the idea that drag is sexual in nature and automatically obscene is just really ridiculous. It's like a comedian.
Yeah.
It's not the fact that the comedy act is happening that can make it more adult oriented. It's the content.
Yeah.
And the same way with drag shows. If I went to Tribe or Play at midnight on Saturday night, I would expect to see a different drag show than I would at an all ages festival during the day.
Exactly.
And we were very clear with our performers, and they all adhered that, remember that we have an all age audience here.
Yeah.
So everything needs to be appropriate for everyone.
Yeah.
And they did that. So the comments were out of context as far as the accusation
Twisted
that there was anything
and manipulated.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Interesting. Do you guys think you'll be able to get it back this year?
Well, so the state law was stayed in federal court.
Okay.
So recently, though, a judge has ruled that law can go back into effect. So we've checked with our attorneys, and it's there. We would have to comply with the law, so we would have to have a cabaret license, restrict the viewing to adults, basically over 18.
What, like a tent, like an enclosed tent?
Yeah, so
18 or over to enter kind of situation.
Right. So the board. We're still exploring that, because what we don't want to exclude drag, because the drag community is such an important part of the LGBTQ community.
Absolutely.
And have always been on the forefront, both of taking the brunt of being picked on by police and others, and also being community leaders.
Yep.
So we definitely don't want to be seen as excluding that important component of our community.
Yeah.
But we also have to navigate, where we are in politics these days, and where we are physically. We're not in Nashville, so things are a little bit more conservative here. So we're still trying to figure out how we can include it in a way that's going to work for us.
Yeah.
For our festival.
Okay. Well, I like hearing that it's in the works to hopefully happen. What is the law, even if you don't know it exactly, like what does it roughly say, just for people
Well,
to know?
basically it says that if you are wearing clothes of that don't belong to your gender assigned at birth, that you are doing something wrong and being vulgar and obscene, and you shouldn't be seen by children.
What in the...
Yeah, it's really...
So wait, what... Would my clothes be a skirt?
That's a great question. That's a great question.
Offensively,
right.
That's wild. I didn't know it was worded like that.
Yeah, it's very.
Whoa.
It's
very broad.
Very broad, and very targeted to allow people to be picked on just for being a little bit different.
Yeah.
What would happen if let's say that I wanted to wear a skirt one day to Kroger.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I want to, but
you know what? One day you
keep
might.
all your options open. And that some mom is in there with a 3-year-old and like calls the police. Like, there's a man clearly wearing women's clothes and that's illegal. And my 3-year-old saw this and it's just terrible. Are they going to come arrest me or, what? And what a waste of resources.
Seriously,
it's a solving a problem that doesn't exist.
Yeah. And so that's state or Williamson County?
State.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's statewide. So I actually testified in the federal case that resulted in the law being stayed for several months. But the stay was pretty specific to only the Memphis area. So whether it was illegal here or not was always a little bit of a gray area.
Okay.
So,
oh my God.
it's really crazy.
And that was just last year that all went into
it was before our festival.
Because I remember...
Well, it was 2 years ago.
Oh, it's been 2 years.
2 years ago.
Last year, so being in Murfreesboro and then having Borough Pride, last year was the first year that we had attended that. And then I knew that I started hearing stuff that in Murfreesboro that you couldn't hold hands or be kissing or doing anything, with the same sex publicly. And I'm like, what in the hell is going on? Like, I'm just... It's like exasperation and just like, just mind blown.
In Franklin, when all this was happening a couple of years ago, one of the aldermen proposed a decency ordinance. Oh, okay. And it was also very vague. And I think that their attorneys decided that they shouldn't go forward with it. But
there's plenty of heterosexual people that aren't decent.
Exactly. And
there's a lot of
they
that.
also tried to float a new ordinance that if a festival organizer that gets a special event permit, which is what we get to use the park,
right?
If there's a violation of the decency ordinance, which never went into effect, that the festival holder would be responsible and banned from having the festival for like 5 years.
Wow.
So, but I think that when other city officials, started exploring that a little bit more, they were like, okay, Pilgrimage Festival has probably a greater chance of getting in trouble than this than Franklin Pride. So do we want to not have pilgrimage for 5 years?
Right.
Is that, what did they say? Unintended consequences.
Yep.
So
they start thinking about it. They're like, well, this could actually affect us.
Exactly.
We're just trying to target them.
Yeah. Even compared to Nashville Pride, which is, I love it. I love Nashville Pride. I love that we have so many prides now in Tennessee.
Yes, I know.
I think we have about 20.
That's amazing.
It is, yeah.
That's amazing.
But even Nashville Pride is more. It feels more like this. A lot of the people who go out to the clubs and things, they like to go, which is great.
Yeah.
So. And we definitely have people from Nashville who come to Franklin Pride, but I think that if we had the statistics of the average age, I would guess that our average age is more like 11, and Nashville Pride's is probably more like 25.
Yeah, but that's great then. And there's that pocket for each to really feel.
It makes sense if you think about. I mean, who lives in Franklin? Young families with children.
Yeah.
That's why people want to live here.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that our festival would be that vibe rather than more of like a big party scene.
Yeah. And it really just, to me, it's just a day to celebrate, and everybody's so supportive and happy and saying happy Pride to each other. And, but I mean, it's fun to go see the vendors and to try the foods. And my daughter and I have gone to some really random festivals and things that we've come across, especially since being here, just because I'm like, oh, well, let's go check this out. It's like, I might not be interested in whatever they're doing there. I don't know, I can't even think of what it might be, that maybe they're I don't know.
Yeah.
I might not be interested in the exact thing that the festival is about, but I can still go for the vendors, and I can still go for maybe the music that's there, or I can,
check out something new.
Yeah, just go check out something new. Exactly. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Nashville has a lot of really fun festivals, and for example, the Greek Festival. I don't know if you've ever been to that, but
I haven't.
Super fun.
I haven't done that one.
Yeah, there's just a lot.
We did the Oktoberfest one.
Mm-hmm. That's
and
a big one.
That was fun, although at first we couldn't figure out where it was. I could hear it.
Yeah.
It's like I can hear the music, but I thought it was in, I guess, the ball field that's there.
Oh, no.
And then we're just like walking up and down the streets, and then finally we it opened up to the street.
Yeah,
we're like, there.
Oh, here we are.
So we had done that one just to go check it out. But yeah, again, I mean, I like to go, and especially with vendors. I love shopping the vendors.
Franklin Pride's next. We're going to have a booth at Pumpkin Fest. Do you know what Pumpkin Fest is?
No, I don't know about Pumpkin Fest.
Okay, it's a downtown festival in Franklin.
Okay.
They close all the streets all around the square.
Okay.
And it's, vendors, food, that kind of thing. Everyone gives out Halloween candy.
Well, you know what? Maybe we went to that one last year, actually. Was it blazing hot? Were you guys there last year?
It was warm, yeah.
Then maybe we had done that one, because I know we had come across the Wilco Iris booth, and I bet that's what it was. And it probably in my head, I think it was Pumpkin Fest, because I was so hot.
Yeah, that's probably it.
That's kind of what we're doing. Okay, so what is that happening?
It's coming up on October 26th.
Okay, cool.
It's 10 to 6, I
10
believe.
to 6.
Yeah.
Okay, right in Franklin downtown.
Yep. So we'll have
exciting.
we'll have a booth along with Wilco Iris and PFLAG Franklin.
Oh, good.
And we're gonna give away candy. Then we'll have a wheel to spin to win some nicer candy and some other stickers, this and that.
Some swag.
So,
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's always a really fun day. It's a big festival. They have about 150,000 attendees every year. So it's a little bit bigger than Franklin Pride.
Hey, it's going to get bigger and bigger each year, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's got to start somewhere, and then it'll grow.
Yeah.
Grow from there.
We were really thrilled. The first year that we did Franklin Pride, when we were getting ready to open the gates, we were like, okay, are we going to have 50 people or 500 or what's going to happen? But we had we had around 4,000 people the first year, which was just amazing. So we were, we've had a nice trajectory of growth every year, and we really planned this year to have, we expected 10,000 people, but of course it rained. So we had a good turnout in spite of the rain.
It was an amazing turnout.
And everyone who did make it had a really good time.
Yeah, it was super fun. I feel like stuff like that to me just adds to the experience. Like, you'll always remember, because I mean the wind's blowing, the rain's blowing, people are trying to hold their tents down, but I don't know. I mean, we huddled into a tent when it really started raining, and then we got to chat with the people that were in there, just because you're kind of forced to wait out the rain. And so I don't know. I like looking at those kinds of things. It's like a lot of opportunities, and also, just maybe you'll remember it more because it was a little crazy. But I mean, we really enjoyed it for sure. I mean, it was only our second one, but we're looking forward to attending more.
Well, we're not going to order any more rain, so hopefully next year it'll be
no more rain.
fun.
No more rain. And no more heat. No more heat, no more rain. Just like a little bit of a cooler day.
Right.
That's why I actually was happy with the rain, because sweltering in the heat, I think, to me, is far worse.
Yeah.
My northerner blood doesn't like the heat.
Brandon and I were in Austin, Texas in August for a business reason.
Yeah.
But while we were there, it just so happened to be Austin Pride.
Oh.
So they have a big parade that goes down Congress Avenue.
Oh, that's cool.
And they actually have their parade at night because it's
still
hot. 100 degrees, but it's not 116.
Right.
So
that's cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. We've been able to be there for that 2 years in a row.
Nice. That's really cool. I bet it's nice to kind of see what other towns and cities and stuff are doing. And you're the president of PFLAG, right?
No, I'm on the board.
I mean, of Franklin
Franklin
Pride.
Pride, yeah.
Yeah, you're on the board for PFLAG.
I'm on the board of
president
PFLAG,
of Franklin
yeah.
Pride. And how many years for the president stuff for the Franklin Pride now?
I think I'm in my 4th year. Yeah.
Okay. Is it
Or third? Yeah, fourth year.
Is it go by 4-year terms or anything? Or?
We don't really have term limits. My intention is not to be, emperor forever.
Right.
But the our first president was our founder, Robert McNamara, and Franklin Pride actually started as a committee under PFLAG. Several of the board members, mainly Robert, from PFLAG, had the idea, well, why can't we have a Pride Festival in Franklin? And the committee met for about a year, and we were working toward it, and then COVID happened, so that kind of put everything on hold for a little while.
Yeah.
But but then really PFLAG, the PFLAG is a specific for the purpose of being a support group.
Yeah.
So the Pride Festival didn't really mesh with the specific mission of PFLAG. So that's when we decided to spin it off as its own organization.
But it's nice to have that kind of mother thing that was already established, and especially because it's a national thing, PFLAG, to have had that support and stuff to then say, okay, branching off of that.
Right. We have a lot of overlap between the board of PFLAG Franklin and Franklin Pride.
Yeah.
I mean,
which is also nice.
Yeah,
all
it
your
is.
buddies.
It's good to have a little bit of continuity, but we've added some more. We wanted to add more people though, and not just have the same 5 or 6 people all the time.
Yeah,
it's always good to get
over time too, right? I mean, it takes
Yeah.
time to in the beginning there has to be those initial people, and then you can add
exactly.
from there.
So I'm happy to keep doing it until whenever somebody is ready or expresses interest.
Yeah.
It's been about, I think I'm in my 4th year.
Okay.
But that's how I met a lot of my friends now. When I moved to Franklin, I still worked in Nashville.
Okay.
So all of I really just kind of slept here, it almost felt like. And
then would go back
rest of my life happened in Nashville. And after a few years, I decided I was going to try to get more involved in Franklin. And I thought, well, how can I do that? And then I had heard about PFLAG because my friend Lisa Howell, who used to be the CEO of the Nashville LGBT Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's the Tennessee Pride Chamber now.
Okay.
But anyway, her mother is the president of a PFLAG chapter in Dallas, Texas, and that's kind of how I knew about it. And then I found out that they had a chapter here, so I reached out to Jenny Bailey, who was president at the time, and she replied to my email right away, but then asked well, can I call you? And so we talked on the phone, and she was sort of like, why are you interested in being a part of PFLAG? And I said, well, I understand why you would ask that, because I don't have children, I'm not a parent. And I don't necessarily even need support in that way, but I just want to be in the community. And she said, we would love to have you, because a lot of these parents, especially when they're new, their kid just came out, they're terrified. They're so worried. Is my kid going to be okay? And to have someone that's like, okay, you went through all that and you seem to be fine.
The representation.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I got started with it. But then that's where I met Robert and Tracy and Jenny and
and good group of people. Then.
Yeah, a really good group. And then Robert asked me to work on the Franklin Pride Committee, and then it worked out great when we did decide to spin it off. I've done some things like that before, so I was able to work with our attorneys and kind of be the attorney's point of contact, and then I could okay,
that's a huge
all the
help.
board members need to sign this or whatever.
Because that can feel so intimidating. Somebody can be like, I want to do this, but all that is really scary, or I don't even know where to start.
Exactly.
So that's a huge asset to have had that.
Yep.
That's awesome. So, okay, so you've born and raised in Tennessee.
Yes, I've always lived in
Always
Tennessee.
lived here, but Western Tennessee born.
Yes,
right?
I was born in West Tennessee. I lived in a town called Dresden
Okay.
for until I was 17. And I went to college in West Tennessee at the University of Tennessee at Martin.
Okay.
Then after college, I moved to East Tennessee, and I lived in Chattanooga for 5 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it wasn't.
And now you're in middle.
And now I'm in middle. I've lived in all 3 grand divisions of the state.
Okay. You've covered it all.
Yep, that's right. Chattanooga was not as cool when I lived there as it is now. This was before the aquarium opened, and which really sparked all the downtown redevelopment.
It's a cute downtown. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've only known it with the aquarium, so.
Yeah.
But it is a cute downtown. There's stuff that we kind of discover each time we end up going down there. And the aquarium is nice.
Mm-hmm. It's very nice.
So, have brother and sister.
Mm-hmm.
And are they still in Dresden? Have they kind of...
My sister and her family still live in Dresden, and my brother and his family are in Paris, which is like 20 miles away from Dresden.
Okay. Did you ever see yourself going to any other state, or you just kind of like, no, I like it?
I've always liked it here. I always wanted to live in Nashville. And really, I would have moved to Nashville after college, but that's not where I got a job. So I wanted to work for a CPA firm, and so if you want to work for a bigger firm, you've got to live in a bigger city because they don't have offices in small towns. And so I ended up, and I interviewed in Memphis and in Chattanooga, but I got the better job in Chattanooga. So that's why I moved there.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. You gotta, especially coming into... You can't, pull rank. Right. You got to climb the ladder and be like, yes, sir, here's where I'll go.
Well, my goal was to become a CPA. I had a degree in accounting, and I don't know exactly what the rules are now, but when I was going through that, you had to have the degree in accounting.
Okay.
And then the next step is you have to pass the CPA exam. And
makes sense.
Yeah, and then you have to work under the supervision of a CPA for 2 years.
Oh, full time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So
paid? Just poorly paid. Probably.
It was okay.
It was okay. All right.
Yeah.
I was like, God, is that an internship that whole time?
No, it was my first job.
Okay, that's good. That's good. All right.
Yeah. Accounting jobs are usually pretty good.
So that was in Chattanooga. That was that part then?
Yes.
That you were, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I worked my first 5 years of my career in Chattanooga at a regional CPA firm doing audits and tax.
So 2 years with them. Did you, then you continued same firm?
Yeah, but that was a CPA then. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if I wanted, I could have gone out on my own.
Yeah.
I've never wanted to do that really as far as, and I'm no longer active as a CPA. I'm still considered a CPA, but I don't get the continuing education requirements and all that.
Right.
So I can't really they call it hold yourself out as a CPA. Like I can't rent an office downtown and say that I'm going to open a CPA shop. It's not allowed.
Okay, not allowed.
But I don't want to do that anyway.
Right, so then who cares?
Exactly.
You don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit, growing up, about the Methodist and the Baptist stuff that you're telling me about. So your father was the Methodist?
Yes.
And then your mother was Baptist, right?
That's
and you were caught in the middle going to both.
Yes. I had to go to church 2 times on Sunday, or at least.
Wow.
Yes, when my parents got married, my mom just started going to my dad's church. That's what people did, back then.
Right.
And it was okay, but it was a small country church, the Methodist church, and my mom never really loved it. But then when my brother and sister were born, my mom was just like, I can't do this church anymore because they don't have any other kids. So she went back to the Baptist church and when one of the bigger churches in town. So the way that the schedule worked, though, the Methodist church had church service at 9 and then Sunday school at 10.
Okay.
So I would have to go to that with my dad and then rush home and ride to the Baptist church with my mom from 11 to 12.
So it was like a full day affair for you to do that. And that was
then sometimes
every Sunday.
Yes, and yeah.
Wow.
So I was in the Methodist Youth Fellowship, and then also in whatever I can't remember the name of the Baptist youth thing, but a lot of church.
Yeah, a lot of church. Yeah. Whew. Now, when we had chatted prior to this, I know you were telling me about when you were 10 years old that you really started to I guess kind of start hearing the words a little bit more, right? And really starting to think about kind of what you're being told and apply that to what you're seeing from how people were treating others and various things. So
Yeah.
what was kind of that epiphany for you?
I think the main thing I remember is that some of our church leaders were, they would say the words during church, but then in the community they were not nice people. And I had some examples that I personally had experienced with that, and it really just made me question, well, if we're supposed to love everybody, if we're making fun of people because they're on food stamps that doesn't seem good.
That's not loving thy neighbor. Wow.
Right. Or if we're...
What a thing to make fun of somebody for.
Yeah, exactly. Or if we're, purposefully excluding Black people from our activities, then how is that loving everybody? And that was rampant in my town in the 70s and 80s, and it probably still is today.
Yeah. So there was then some chinks in the armor of
Yeah, it made me start to question, and then finally my analytical mind at age 10 was like, yeah, this doesn't add up.
Yeah. Just so amazing, because you can really, at least I feel like I can understand how people do kind of become brainwashed in a sense with stuff, right? Because it's all they know. It's what they're around. It's what they're hearing. It's what, everybody in the family or the neighborhood or whatever is saying.
Right.
And if you don't get outside that bubble, then how would you know to be any different? So I think it's amazing at 10 that you're like, wait a second, call bullshit on this a little bit.
Right. I think I had a different perspective too, because I was always a reader and I read everything. I read anything I could get my hands on.
Okay.
Even things that were probably too adult for me to be reading, but
so
I didn't care.
Anything in particular that you read that really stood out to you as like a eye opener?
I don't remember anything in particular. I think it was just the whole experience of realizing that there's a whole lot out there in the world to experience beyond what I'm seeing.
Got you out of your bubble in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which again, that's why even with stuff now with the book banning and things, it's like, if you don't know it exists, then you don't know it exists.
Right. Yeah.
So it's control, and really make that bubble smaller.
Right.
And keep you in it. So interesting.
Yeah. But I always knew I wanted to move away. I had a perfectly lovely childhood and a great family. They were all super and still are, and everything's great, but I just knew that I didn't belong there.
Yeah.
I was like, this is not for me.
Yeah. Too small. You needed to spread your wings.
Right.
So in those sermons too, I know that something you had talked to me about is a lot of the sinning, which again was the stuff where you're like, this isn't lining up, because again, you're saying don't or do this, but then outside of here you're not.
Right.
So is that around the time for you and around that age where you yourself are realizing you're feeling that maybe you're gay, or so then you're hearing this stuff, you're like, oh my God, this is about me they're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. It was really even earlier than that. I knew that I was different, and I didn't even know what. Why? I didn't have the words, but I was like, okay, there's something different about me, and it's not going to be okay. That's how I felt.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's heavy for a kid.
Right. And I knew it had something to do with boys and girls, but I didn't know, I was like, I just knew I was different. Like I didn't fit in some areas I had closer friends that were girls than friends that were boys. I had friends that were boys, but I could just sense a difference that I was like, okay, the way that I'm feeling and the way that that group of guys all are is just, there's something not adding up
it's different.
Here. Yeah. But then when I started knowing more about, what things were and the meanings of words, and then I started hearing the sermons about like that, you can't have impure thoughts and you can't all these things, and then I'm like sitting there thinking like half the people in here are divorced and remarried, and everybody knows it, and they had an affair before they got divorced. So
baby Clayton calling everybody out on their shit.
That's right.
I love that. I love that. Even that awareness of being like, okay, this is like, they're talking about you, like, but the double standard that is, I mean, I've never been religious and I don't claim to know like anything about it, but there does seem to be a double standard that you'll feel from, the way that people talk about something, like even now with everything politically and what you see online and stuff, where it's just like, I don't really think that
right.
It's just, I mean, kind of like going back to the stuff with all the laws and trying to restrict things. Then they don't want to restrict the things that are going to restrict themselves.
Exactly.
It's that double standard again.
That's like the a lot of the Old Testament is rules and laws, and the my understanding was that when Jesus came along in the New Testament, all that Old Testament stuff sort of just like went out the window.
Oh,
because
okay.
He was very clear in saying that if you believe in me and live like I do, then you're good, and that's the only thing that matters. I mean, that's a crude way to paraphrase, I think. But anyway, so for example, there's a verse in the book of Leviticus that talks about that if a man lays with another man, it's an abomination and they should both be killed. And there's also about 100 other things in that same passage that, like if a woman commits adultery, she should be stoned to death. Or
where's the stoning?
If I mean, there's all kinds of crazy stuff about like if you eat the wrong two foods together, you got to go. You gotta go. So it's like
tar and feather that one.
Absolutely. So it's like, well, why are we picking out this rule from that somebody who knows how long ago wrote, that's been translated 1,000,000 times?
Yeah.
And, why are we taking this one phrase and saying, oh, there's your answer?
Yep. That's what God wants. It's only that. And the abomination thing, too, going back to that meeting or not meeting, what was it, where the people came forward to speak?
Oh, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting.
Yeah. Okay, so it was considered a meeting. Hearing that word over and over again, and just like, what even is that? Like, and I feel like, again, it's like, do you know what you're actually saying, or you're just, I don't know. And I really think a lot of it just comes down to just fear.
A lot of
really
it
just
is
fear of fear of not knowing, fear of maybe being closeted, and then you're feeling something that you're like, get away from me. But it's just also an unwillingness to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and just to try and see something from a different perspective, which I think people should be striving to do always. Like if you come from wealth, to look at what somebody who doesn't have come from wealth, what they go through.
Right.
If you were from one race, to look at, what somebody from another race goes through, or another country, or, I mean, rather than just sitting on a high horse and barking down at everybody.
Right.
So.
I think you're exactly right, though. A lot of it is fear and just the unknown. And at some point, though, we need to have more conversations with people. But that works both ways. You have to be willing to listen to someone. You can't just like shut them down.
And talk over them or be hateful. Again, even with the political stuff right now that's going on prior to the presidential race and everything, it's upsetting to me when I see people that I would consider friends of mine not choosing to vote differently than me. that's not the issue. But the way that they will attack others
Right.
for where they feel like they want to vote, or where it's like, what, but why do you, it's very upsetting, to feel like people take that approach rather than just be like, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about it. Or come, step into my world for a little bit and see where I'm coming from with it. And let me step into your world and see where you're coming from with it. But I mean, again, that's what things I hope to achieve even with this podcast is just giving people an opportunity to hear like how similar you might actually friggin' be.
Well, some of those people at the board meeting were saying things like that. Well, one of the aldermen actually accused us, Franklin Pride, of handing out like gay material, whatever that is, at the Christmas parade the year before, which was not true.
Yeah.
And
Candy?
we sent a letter to all of the board of mayor and aldermen, and one of the things that we said in the letter was that portraying LGBT people as predatory or dangerous is a stereotype that's got to end.
Yeah.
Because it's just like people will talk about like, well, they have a gay agenda. Well, oh, okay. Well, my agenda is to like go to the grocery store,
live.
I mean,
human, happy,
I'm too
successful.
busy just like running my life to worry about, we're not trying to do anything except just live.
Well, and that rhetoric again of saying that predatory and things, it affects people obviously because people can be attacked.
That's right.
Over it because they feel like this is somebody predatory, that's in my neighborhood that I need to attack. Or even I think of gay couples that want to adopt, and then people are like, you can't have a child around.
Right.
I know a fair amount of gay couples that have adopted, and I wish they were my parents.
Yeah.
They're amazing. They're smart and professional, and they have lovely homes, and they travel, and I mean they're just well-rounded people. I'm like, what? It really does affect things down the pipeline to say stuff like that. It's not just like a one and done like dig, calling somebody a name and then you go on it with your day. It really and again it creates that more and more of that fear.
Right. It makes
into people when
and
they're
it
like predators.
Encourages it to. Oh, well, it must be okay to say things like that.
Oh yeah, yeah. People feel real comfortable to say whatever the hell they want. Recently,
and they sure do. Well, even the comments that were being made that we were having, the drag performances at Franklin Pride had nudity and like sex on stage and all this stuff. I'm like, well, the Franklin police were there. Do you think that they would have not said something to like, excuse me, you can't do that?
Yeah.
Because it didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
Yeah, it's so
didn't
crazy.
happen. Yeah. So let's go back to your school experience, kind of growing up. Like, how was grade school and middle school and high school and stuff for you, as far as like with friends or clubs or things that you're interested in? Or
it was good. I was always really serious about my grades, so I spent a lot of time studying. I was actually second highest in my class in 8th grade.
Okay.
And I didn't realize it was a competition.
Oh, so, damn it. I would have beat that person.
Exactly. So
shame on the school. They should have made it more clear.
Exactly. So I was very focused on being valedictorian of my class.
For high school.
Yeah.
And you did it with a 4.0.
I did.
That's amazing.
Yep. But the other thing the main thing I remember from high school, other than my friends, and I'm still friends with several people from.
Oh, that's great.
And a lot of us started kindergarten together and went all the way through. But the other thing I remember is band. I was in marching band, which it was formed when I was in either 6th or 7th grade. So I was in the very first class.
Yeah.
And I had been involved in like Boy Scouts and things at church, and they were all okay. But band was the first time that I was like, oh, this is what it feels like when you find your people.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was really great.
Yeah, because you could be a little bit more like loose and free, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome.
That was a highlight to remember from high school.
So you started that in 6th grade? And then all the way through high school you did that?
I was in marching band in college, too, for 2 years.
That's a fun experience.
Yeah,
Did you get to do that then at the games, like at football games? See, if my college had anything with that to even go and watch, I missed it. Because I love seeing that on TV. When they come, I love watching that. I mean, it's just the precision and just the attention to detail.
Yeah.
And I love all the choreography and stuff too. Coming from that side with like figure skating and stuff, I'm like, I did some synchronized coaching, which was so much harder to me than singles. I was like, this is not for me because of all that. Like, okay, I've lost track of where these people go. And then you look at these huge marching bands. I'm like,
I know.
how do they do it? And they're perfectly like lined up and they're playing the instrument. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty impressive.
I liked it. In college, after 2 years, I couldn't be in band anymore though, because I was in an academic scholarship program, and it just became too demanding. Yeah. But I was in the first 2 years. I played in symphonic band during concert season, and then on the field in marching season.
Okay. So what did you play in the band?
I played French horn in concert band, and the marching version of the French horn is called a mellophone. It looks like a trumpet, only larger.
Oh, interesting.
It has a similar tone to a French horn. It's not quite as distinct. It sounds a little bit more brassy than
I've heard French horn's pretty hard to play.
It is very difficult to play because there are fingerings, for the valves.
Right.
I had a double horn, so it has 3 valves and a trigger to change from the key of F to key of B flat.
Wow.
And I learned, though, that it doesn't really matter what buttons you press. It's all about your embouchure and your the muscles in your lips that control the tone.
Okay.
So that's what makes it so hard.
I played clarinet for a couple years, required. That was when you had to do band for like a certain. So I did clarinet because I think my sister did clarinet. So then we had a clarinet.
Right. Yeah, that happens a lot.
But oh my God, my mouth by the end of it, and that reed, and it was wet, and I was like, I'm just not cut out for this. I mean, again, I appreciate
well, you really have
the effort and the talent it takes, but it was hard for me.
You have to play every day for a long time
you gotta practice
before all that works right and it's not painful anymore.
Yeah, and I wasn't.
Yeah.
So I, figure skated growing up, so that was where I spent 99% of my time. And then I played piano, which I enjoyed. And so that I would put some time into, but the clarinet was a requirement. So, but it was interesting learning. It was such a different feel to to be controlling something where the piano, you can glance at it and it was like left to right. This is vertical. And like, it was harder. It was definitely harder for me to kind of understand it. But again, I mean, what people can do with those. I like listening to the band. Just didn't need to be in it myself. I wasn't good. I don't feel like I was adding anything to it. But I feel like at that age, too, you just hear everybody squeaking there.
That's kind of what you're doing.
There's like a squeak here and a violin goes crazy somewhere or something.
Exactly.
So.
Right. The drum section misses the cutoff and they're still playing after everybody else is finished with the song.
Yeah. And all the parents are like, okay.
Yeah. Right. There was a lot of that.
Yeah. So originally going off to college, you said that you were going to go for engineering, right? And you had actually started to get into it. But then you had learned something about where you were at with math, right?
Yes, that's right. Well, when I started the engineering classes at UT Martin, you had to take a certain level of math class, and it was calculus.
Right.
Well, my high school didn't have calculus, so I thought, well, how hard could it be? Well, it was like it was in a different language.
Yeah.
So that caused me to pretty quickly change my major out of engineering, which I don't think I would have liked being an engineer anyway. So it was for the best.
For the best. Now, the math that you were getting and stuff, did you have any issues with it, or no, you took to the math like through high school and stuff?
Oh,
That was totally fine.
Yeah, everything
I've
was
always
fine.
struggled with math. I don't have that kind of brain.
I made A's, and we had algebra 1, algebra 2, and geometry. That was it.
That was it. Wow.
So no advanced geometry like trig, no calculus. So
do you know if it's still like that?
I'm sure it is, but I don't know for sure.
Interesting. And not even to just introduce it a little bit, like some of the fundamental basic things. It's
well, and I also
surprising.
blame my advisor at UT Martin who let me sign up for all those classes, because he should have had
Seen your
my high school
transcripts.
transcript.
Yeah.
And
been like, ooh.
and it
this
was
stops at here, and we need it here.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I changed my major to pre-pharmacy after that.
Oh.
But then I found out the same thing happened with organic chemistry.
Oh, God, that's another bad one for me.
Yeah, I made straight A's in chemistry in high school and regular chemistry, but then the first day of class in organic, I was like, what is he doing?
What
happening? What are we talking about right now?
Oh, my God. That's the only class I've ever failed in college. So I have a bachelor's in earth science meteorology.
Okay.
Very random, I know. And then I had decided, you know what, I really wish I had done forensic science. So I was like, after I graduated, I decided I would go back for a master's in that. So I needed a bunch of different sciences that I hadn't had at the time, being that I was in earth science, field, and then going to forensic science. And so organic chem and stuff was one of those things. And I was like, what's happening? And I remember I had the molecule set, and the balls are flying everywhere, and everybody's building them. And the demographic that I was in, because I would use a bunch of community colleges in New Jersey to try and make it affordable. So to try any of those, classes just to kind of knock them out that weren't like degree focused or major focused. The demographic of the area I was in, doctors, pharmacists, primarily that's what their parents were doing, and that's what they would be doing. So they came to the table knowing what to do with those damn molecules and their sets. And I couldn't even cheat off of somebody if I wanted to, because I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on with this. I have no clue. And my first time that I took it, that teacher had a very thick accent. So that also, I was like, I got nothing.
Yeah.
I got nothing. I can't do anything. And it was frustrating because, it's like generally in sciences and stuff, I'm like, okay, I have something in front of me. I can, I can learn it because my hands are on it. I can figure out. But those damn things, I was just like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening.
Yeah. I had a whole year of it, and I never had a clue. I mean,
I don't know how I got through it the second time.
Yeah. I
think it was a sympathy grade.
Yeah. I think after I changed my major to undeclared, I think the instructor was like, well, okay, he doesn't really need to know this. Right. So how about we'll give him a C.
That's what I think. Yeah, that's what I think I got. It was like a barely C. And I was so proud of that, to just get through it, because that was hard.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't really want to be a pharmacist either when I thought more about it. But I ended up going to the Career Counseling Center at UT Martin.
Okay.
And one of the things they did at the time, was give you an aptitude test.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And that's when they were going over the results with me. They were like, did you ever think about going into business, specifically accounting?
Yeah.
And I said, I've thought, I don't really know enough about it, because again, we didn't have like bookkeeping class or anything at my high school.
To even introduce the idea to you. Yeah.
So the guy said, why don't you take basic accounting, like the very first accounting course, and see what you think about it.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
Oh, just felt like the right fit.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yep. I changed my major the summer between my sophomore and junior year.
Wow.
But I still had to get out in 4 years, though, because that's how long my scholarship was.
Yes.
So that was a crazy summer of taking like a lot of like really hard accounting courses.
Now we know why it was so demanding the last 2 years for you, and you couldn't do it with the marching band.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
But it worked out.
Yeah, it really did. It's hard coming right out of college or high school and being like, okay, pick your lane.
Right.
We're I feel like in that place with my daughter now, and I'm like, I think back and I'm like, that's why I was like, oh, well, I like meteorology. I like science. I'll just do that because I knew I was So grew up skating, competitive skater. At 14, I started coaching. I was like, well, I'm just going to continue coaching. I make good money. I love it. I'm, and doing what I am passionate about. But I wanted a degree. I wanted that, thing. Because I was always Wendy, who was the figure skater. And I was like, well, I can do something else.
Right.
Then I picked a degree. I was like, ooh, this thing's challenging.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
But it is really hard to go, okay, now pick your life's, course of what you want to do for your profession. It's like, I don't know.
I know. I don't know why they don't do more things like, of course, I mean, the thing with standardized tests is testing is you have to be suspicious if there's bias built into the test. So, but there's got to be a way to help a young person figure out like, well, what do you want to do? Because, like engineer, that sounds good.
Right.
I had no idea, like, okay, what job are you going to do with that? And that's what I didn't have any idea of. And then I picked pharmacy because I like science.
Yeah.
But it's like, do I want to own a drugstore and fill prescriptions all day and sell little old lady trinkets in the front? I don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that either.
So, I'm glad that I discovered that aptitude testing.
Yeah. Now you're very successful in what you're doing. So it's a good thing that you kind of had to go a little bit out of the long way around to get to it, but that you got there.
Yeah. And I just really enjoyed, I still do. I do all of my company's accounting and bookkeeping and payroll and all that.
Oh, I bet they appreciate that.
Yeah.
I still like this.
It's sort of not what you would expect because I started out in public accounting and then I got involved in finance for retailers at Service Merchandise, and then later at Dollar General, which I spent a big part of my career at Dollar General. And I was really, at a high level overseeing all of the budgeting and forecasting activities of the company.
Right.
And so you would think that, you would just keep getting more high level.
Right.
When I started my own company with my business partner, I basically went down all the way to the lowest level of doing bank reconciliations and writing checks and running payroll and which I'd never really done payroll before, but
it's working out.
Yeah.
250 employees. It's obviously you got something working over there.
Yes.
Which is really, really cool. Really cool. All right, so let's talk about coming out.
Okay.
When did you come out? Who did you come out to?
Well, the first time I came out to anyone was in college.
Okay.
And I came out to, I had two other friends that were gay. Okay. And we kind of all just had a bottle of champagne one night and all.
And you're all just
spilled the beans.
Yeah. And did you feel off of them a little bit of right?
It either seemed like that they were or that it was a safe space.
Yeah.
So and then I have my first cousin is gay, and we sort of came out to each other around that same time.
Okay. Were they also in college around that? Yeah. Yeah. It really is so many people's story. I feel like of those generations, it's again out of that bubble, a little bit older, a little bit more exposure to maybe some other people where you're starting to feel a little bit more comfortable, or just people that are a little bit more open to the idea because they're not kind of locked in on these old generational, okay. Yeah. So in college.
Yes,
but just to the roommates,
just to my friends. Yeah. I didn't come out to anyone in my family other than my cousin until I was an adult, and I'd started dating someone, and we intended to move in together, and that's when, literally the day before we moved in together, I called my mother, and I was like, "Well, Kurt's moving in with me," and she was like, "Really? Why?" And I was like, "Oh my God."
Put it together.
Yeah. So finally she was like, "Oh, okay." But she didn't say very much. But then she called back the next day and she said, "Well, I just have one question. And I said, okay, what is it? And she said, when I come to Nashville, can I still stay with you?
Oh.
And I said, yes,
Yes.
we will be in our room and you can stay in the guest room. And she was
Okay.
like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we still didn't really talk about it a whole lot.
Okay.
But it was sort of like but it was, I just knew it was going to be okay. And when we started dating, like when Christmas rolled around or whatever, I was like, well, obviously we're going to each other's house for
Yeah.
Christmas, and let's just see what happens. And if it's not okay, it's not going to be okay for us to go.
Yeah.
And it was okay for everybody.
That's great. So has there ever been like a true, like, in-depth kind of conversation, like, with your mom?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Much later. But
Much later.
I think that she was a little bit, it was kind of one of those like, well, why didn't you tell me type
Yeah.
things? Like, you could tell me anything, which I did know that, but also in a way, don't ask, don't tell was so ingrained in everything back then.
Yeah.
And I also didn't really have anything to tell because I
Right.
didn't
You were still
wasn't
figuring out.
seeing anybody, or
Yeah.
I had still tried to have a girlfriend a couple of times, every now and then.
Got to do that.
Didn't work
Got to
out.
try and force that, right?
Yeah. But yes, I was still figuring it out. And since I wasn't in any sort of relationship or really even dating, I just kind of thought, well, what is there to tell?
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. Kind of like, well, I don't really have anything to talk about.
Right.
So let me figure out a little bit more myself first, and I can come back to the table with something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I probably should have done it though, because at the time, like when I was in high school and college, my mother worked in the book publishing industry.
Okay.
And she lived in Dresden and worked at a distribution center, but all of her bosses were in New York, and she went to New York all the time. And then, later I was like, wait a minute. And I started naming all these people that she worked with. I was like, was he gay? And she was like, oh my gosh, they were all gay.
Oh, man. There's all that representation, right?
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. She said basically all the people I worked with in New York were gay, pretty much.
But probably good for her to maybe have seen it, become comfortable with it. So when you came out, that it was kind of like, okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. Because again, seeing they're successful, seeing that they're happy,
Right.
because again, I think that's some of the fear attached for people, like how you were saying back to the PFLAG meetings when you first came on, how Jenny was like, hey, it's great for you to be here.
Right.
Because this person's son just came out and they can't envision what his life could possibly be like.
Right.
Because they envisioned it with a girl.
Exactly.
And now they're afraid of, is he going to have, the same kind of path in life? So
Right. Is he going to be okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think with parents of trans kids too, that's a big almost like a grieving process. And not that even if you're supportive, it's like, okay, in my mind I had this all worked out for the next several decades, and now it's like, oh well, that's not what we're doing after all.
Yeah.
So
it is definitely a whole nother component, especially if you're changing pronouns or things. It is it is, you do have to kind of grieve. And it's not grieving necessarily their future, you're grieving kind of that closed book.
Yeah.
It's not even a chapter. It's like that book is closed.
Right.
So yeah, it's a lot.
Well, when I go to our in-person meetings, which I try to do every month unless I'm out of town, I sometimes they can be a little draining for me in a way, because sometimes people are having heavy things to share, but I always feel glad that I went, especially if I can say something that maybe goes along with a story that somebody else has said,
help somebody,
that that it always makes me feel I'm always like, I'm really glad I came to this. Even
I'm glad to hear that.
Even though at 7:00 I wasn't thrilled about leaving the house.
Yeah.
But it's I think it's important to have, and probably somewhat unique in our group, that we have representation from the community and not just parents.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's so important. And that coming to PFLAG for us, obviously, as parents, but I really think that it should be looked at as a all-encompassing, because again, yeah, the parents need to see the representation. So even if that's somebody who isn't a parent themselves, that shouldn't matter. Or even if they're just an ally, that isn't even a parent, that's helpful too. Because sometimes I feel like, oh, I'm scared for my child, and to see, well, I'm here in this room. I don't have to be here. I don't have a kid. I don't have, a state, anything in the game kind of thing. I'm just here to support. So I do think that that all encompassing thing is important. I think, I would hope that other PFLAG branches and stuff throughout the country accept everybody like that too, because I do think that's really important.
Yeah.
To feel that support.
Well, and I almost always learn something, just to hear people's story and their perspective. And I can give you an example. When Jenny was talking about their journey with their son, and she said, well, when he came out, then we had to decide if we were going to come out, and at church and at school and among family, and I'd never thought about that. That you're kind of like,
you're coming out a little bit too in a different way.
Exactly. I never thought of it that way. But then as a parent now, you're like, oh, okay, who do I tell?
Yep.
How do I tell them?
When is it safe?
What are we going to do if they're not okay? Like, how's that going to look?
Yeah. Yeah. It is something that we've realized, and going through this with our daughter, is we went through that same thing of like, okay, coming out to us just after she turned 13, but then we also didn't feel like we're not gonna go and shout it from the mountaintops, not because we're trying to hide it or anything, but we want to make sure she's still a child.
Yeah, exactly.
And we want to make sure that things are safe, and we wanted to make sure that we kind of continue to give her the strongest foundation of who she is at the core.
Right.
So once you do start hearing, because that's inevitable, to start hearing those things and everything, that you have a strong enough foundation that you can be like, yeah, fuck that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And that went along with people in, kind of our circle, if you will, where we're like, we'll just wait. We'll kind of feel it out and, and see. But it is so interesting. And it's interesting, too, to hear that it's draining to go to PFLAG for you, but that it feels good that you went.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little bit of this. I look forward to going so much. I do feel a lot of emotion.
Yeah.
So maybe I can relate to that kind of draining term, in that while I'm there, I feel a lot of emotion. But I'm always so glad that I went, because I've always, even as a child, have always really tried to put myself in other people's shoes, and it helps me a lot. I've learned so much. I've always been very, very accepting of the community and loving of the community. Besides friends that I've had growing up, being a figure skater, I've been around a lot of gay people.
Sure.
Some of my, coaches. I have a beloved coach that was gay. I mean, it was just normal.
Right.
But I learned so much, and I feel like you have to be there and listen to people in order to do that. You're not going to learn that not seeing kind of their pain, but also their successes. And when somebody can come in, even the change that you see in the people that come that are like a shell of themselves, and the growth that they make, whether it's themselves coming out or for their child, that like gets me.
Me too. And I can think of several of our members that we've seen that in the last couple of years. Yeah. That it's a transformation, really.
It's unbelievable. And probably for some people, life-saving.
Yes.
That's where with PFLAG, in meeting new people, Dan always jokes around, because I like try and jump right onto of like, let's connect, let's like exchange phone numbers.
Right.
Because I want them to come back. Because I feel like once you've come back that second time, you'll continue to come back.
Right.
But it can be really hard to have come that first time. And maybe you just feel too overwhelmed and you think, no, it's not even worth it, or whatever kind of loop is going through your head of maybe negativity or whatever that keeps you from coming back. But that's your community.
Right.
And I mean, it really can be life or death for somebody. To feel that I have this safe space, or I'm meeting people.
That somebody cares.
Yeah, that somebody cares, and they're not judging me, or they're I mean, yeah, it really, I've enjoyed it so much. And being that we've only been 4 years now in Tennessee, when we moved down here, I really found like my people are there.
Right.
You know, like you said,
Yeah.
I found my people.
Right.
I really feel like that too. Because I mean, these are the type of morals and characteristics and things I want in people that are loving and accepting of other people, but that are also professional and motivated to, you know, be the best version of themselves. And because that's inspiring to be around,
Yes.
you know? So it really is an amazing organization. I hope that people, you know, look for PFLAG branches in your area because truly, again, even as an ally or a parent or just to learn.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Kurt, if you're good to talk about Kurt.
Yeah.
So in dating, and you were talking about how you guys moved in together, and that's when you're like, hey, mom. But yeah, tell us a little bit of the story about Kurt.
Kurt and I met in, I think it was, I can't remember exactly what year, like 98 maybe. And I moved into an apartment, a big house that had been turned into 4 apartments in East Nashville.
In East Nashville.
And he already lived there. He rented a room from one of the other people who lived there. And we got to be friends. And I thought we were dating. But when we did actually start dating, I said something about like, well, it's really like we've been dating for like a year. And he said, no, I've been dating other people.
Oh, no, Kurt.
I was like, oh, okay. So, but yeah, we were together for about 15 years.
Wow.
And unfortunately, he passed away a little over 10 years ago. But we had a great time, and he was from West Tennessee too, so we not the same town, and we didn't go to the same college, but we knew both music people, so we knew a lot of the same people, so that was kind of neat. But yeah, we had we actually got married in New York when it was legal for federal purposes, which actually turned out to be a very good thing that we were married when he died, because it was problematic enough because in Tennessee we weren't married under state law.
Okay.
Which governs probate.
Oh.
So it was tricky to navigate all that. But,
oh my God, you're having to deal with a loss and grieving and then that bullshit.
Feel like the government's trying to take away your everything.
Yeah, and invalidate that this is your husband.
Exactly. Yeah. It was terrible. But for several years, speaking of dating, I'd never really dated anyone. I never dated a guy before I met him.
Wow.
And
0 to 100.
Yeah. And I just knew that it was going to be, great. And it was. But after he died, I really was not in a headspace to date for years. Yeah. Years and years. But I was just starting to feel like maybe I would be open to it. And then I had one person I was interested in, but it didn't work out. And but then I met Brandon, who has been your guest.
Yep, episode 1.
Here. Yep. And we met through some mutual friends in the Tennessee Pride Chamber. And we started hanging out, going to happy hour every now and then. And then he started coming down here. Several of us go to lunch once a week.
That's nice.
Yeah, and he started coming to that, and we just got to know each other more and more and more. But he was dating someone else, like a long distance situation.
Oh, okay.
And I kind of was like, I'm not gonna get ahead of myself because I don't know what's going on here, and I don't want anything weird. Yeah. So he ended up breaking that off though, and then seemed interested in me in a different way. Oh. and we started dating, and it was it's been great.
You guys are a really good compliment to each other.
We have the best time.
Oh my gosh, I bet.
We do. We just laugh, and he sings all the time. Yeah. And we both play the piano, so sometimes we sight read music. I'll play the left hand, he plays the right, or whatever.
Adorable. cool. It's nice you guys have that music connection, though, because obviously that was a big thing for Brandon.
Yes, exactly.
So, and that was a lot of positive memories for you. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's nice that you guys share that.
I could tell right away too that his family was really important to him, and I liked that because that's important to me. Too, and we both get along with each other's parents really well. That
helps.
Wonderful.
It's a little easier.
Yeah.
That's great.
We're just having that. We love to travel, and he can do parts of his job from anywhere. Obviously, he can't show someone a house if he's not here, but I can do my job from anywhere with good internet.
Yeah.
So we went on several trips last year. So
I love that.
Yeah, we try to go somewhere every couple of months or so.
Yeah, the work-life balance then, right? Of like, okay, we're still getting work done, but taking the time. Like you said, when you're in Austin, carve out a little time to go to the Pride Parade.
Right.
I mean, that, even if it's like a nice dinner together or a day together, I mean, that really makes a difference to do that. And I know you guys have your standing weekly dinner date, which I love.
We go to Margot in East Nashville every Friday night, and I've been going there for like over 20 years every week.
Wow, you're the mayor there.
Pretty much. I can always get in.
Yeah. No, I mean that's so smart though, because again, it's like designated, and also showing that, hey, this matters.
Yeah. That
it has a standing place on our schedule.
Right.
Because it can get chaotic and crazy and work and, especially for Brandon in real estate, you got to take it when it comes.
That's
right.
Yes. He almost always works at least part of the weekend, and a lot of times both days of the weekend. And I really do too a lot, because since I own my own business, I can be flexible, but I have deadlines.
Yeah.
So sometimes, like if Franklin Pride has something going on that I need to work on during the week or go meet with someone, then I have to catch up on the weekends. But we both are sort of like, okay, Friday at 5:00.
It's that. Shut everything else
for
down.
At least a couple of hours.
Yeah.
It's a great way to start the weekend. I highly recommend it.
Smart. Yeah, it's so smart to do. Now, do you see yourself getting married again?
I don't know.
Brandon.
Well,
but it's not something you have written off. No. Have going through the experience and stuff with Kurt and everything.
No,
okay,
not at all.
So that door is open.
It's just we're completely committed.
Yeah.
So whether it's official on a piece of paper or not, it doesn't really matter.
I get that.
So I don't know.
I get that. Yeah. Now, what about with children? I know that's not something that you and Brandon want. It's something that I have found in my group of friends, the gay men versus the lesbian women that usually have the child. And I wonder if it just feels a little bit like it was something not an option. So then it just kind of was written off, or it just always felt like I was not interested in that.
The second part.
Which is totally fine.
Yeah.
I have a lot of heterosexual friends too that are like, I don't want a kid.
Right. Yeah, that's just something that has never appealed to me.
Okay.
And I don't know if it even has anything to do with being gay or not, but it just has never appealed to me.
I get it.
Yeah, and when I was really young, I probably assumed that I would have kids,
right?
Because
that was
what you have to do.
Yep, that was the order that your life was going to go in. Marry the woman, have the kids, do the church thing,
and then at some point I realized, I was like, I can't do all this.
Yeah,
that's not going to work for me.
Yeah, and that was fine with Brandon too, right? He came, which obviously that's important. That's a big, that's a big one to be off on.
Right. That would be one we would have to figure out for sure.
Yeah. But you guys have the dogs.
Yeah, we have 7 dogs.
So. 7 dogs. So those are the babies.
Yeah, that's right.
So let's talk a little bit about the importance of having representation. I mean, we've talked about it from PFLAG and everything, but that was something in growing up that you're like, I wish I had. And when we were talking prior to this episode, that you're like, that's something I want to make sure kind of going forward that, so I know that the Oasis Center is something that you really are committed to.
Right.
So maybe talk a little bit about what you do with Oasis Center and also, why you feel that that's so important to have that representation.
Well, Oasis Center, I first learned about them when I was still at Dollar General.
Okay.
I was involved in starting an LGBT employee resource group there at Dollar General, and we did fundraisers for the Just Us program, which is a for gay teens program at Oasis Center.
Nice.
So that's kind of how I started to know them. But I think that they really change kids' lives as far as like enabling them to figure out how to go to college if that makes sense for them, or they've just got a lot of really good programs. And so I support them any way that I can.
Yeah.
But as far as representation, when I was growing up, there was no Will and Grace on TV. There was no Ellen, not at the beginning anyway. You just did not see any gay people on TV. In real life, you just didn't see it. And if there was anything, it was always negative. If anything was said, it was always something
or
negative.
made fun of.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And at one point in my life, I remembered thinking, okay, there's no one else like me out there. I'm the only person that's in, and it's just not going to be allowed. What I think I want to do is not okay.
Yeah.
And
lock it down.
Yeah. And that's why we have to have Franklin Pride. So that I don't want any kid who felt like I did to grow up and think, well, there's nobody else out there like me, because it's just not true.
No, it's not. Yeah.
So that's why I think it's so important. And
it really is.
That really, when Robert had the idea for Franklin Pride, that was really what was all behind it. And it's very gratifying that we have so many young people and their families who come to our festival. And we get feedback that they're, our kid is so happy because they can just come here and be and not have to worry.
Yeah, just exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It is important. Again, that's what I hope to achieve with this, and letting these stories come forward too, is the reach. Now, I didn't grow up somewhere rural, and now being in a state where I've seen these rural places, and my daughter's own girlfriend lives in a rural place. And I don't know if Brandon had told you, but when his episode come out, she is very, very restricted where she is. And what she can see, and she was able to listen to the episode, and that got me, because that's so important.
Yes,
it's so important. Right. So even if you don't feel like you have the community right there, to know, on social media there's these things, or to find these podcasts, or to reach out, that there are these communities out there that will kind of adopt you in, even if you're further away.
Yes.
But it is important.
That's part of our mission statement for Franklin Pride. It's, in addition to, our big event is the festival, but part of our purpose is to build community and awareness and let people know that there's a place they can turn, and that there is a community. And, before I moved here, if someone had said, what do you think the gay community in Franklin is like? I probably would have laughed. I would have been like, I don't think that there is one.
I don't think those two things happen in the same sentence.
We've got a great community here, and I feel like we're adding people all the time that
constantly
are finding us,
or feeling brave enough to come out, or take that step for themselves or their children.
So it's important, in addition to the festival, to have a booth at Pumpkin Fest, to be in the Christmas parade. And
constant reminder, we're here.
The first year that we were in the Christmas parade, I pulled the float with my truck, and I was like, how is this going to be? Like, are we going to get
Yeah.
booed or jeered
Right.
or what's going to be? But when we got to the main crowded part around the square and pulled around the corner,
Yeah.
the applause that we got was just, I couldn't
Ooh,
believe it. I mean,
yeah.
I was like, I can't believe this. It's amazing.
It's amazing. It really is. Yeah.
Yep. But, and that's why when all those haters came to the meeting and tried to get us shut down, I was like, this is off brand for Franklin. We're nice here.
Yeah. And like you said, your mission is community. And at the root of it, if you take apart, separate who's saying it and whose mission statement it is, if you look at the root of it, to these people that are very religious and are very, there's probably similar things that are being said as far as supporting community
Right.
or accepting people or loving people or
Sure.
this, that. The root of it is the same. And why wouldn't you want a community of those people? Would you rather somebody with a mission statement of like, we're here to, terrorize your
Right.
your families and, ruin, like, rip your stores apart and steal and set your house on fire? Is that the mission statement you want? Or do you want one that's talking about community and support? And
how can we help each other?
Yeah.
Learn from each other.
Yeah. Why is that something to be feared?
Right. I know, it's mind-boggling.
Like take a damn second and actually read what this group is trying to achieve. And
right.
I mean, that's what I would want in my community. Those are the people I would want around my child and, to support. I mean, I think it's amazing. I mean, you've done a lot and I'm really glad that you feel like you found like kind of your platform and stuff too, where you're like, I have something to say and I'm good at it. And, it's great. I had written down Out and About Nashville, News Channel 5 that you were on, Newsweek, you were quoted in, Outward Magazine, Truth Out, NBC News. And those are just the ones I had found.
Yes.
And that's just been in the last 2 years, right? When everything had started.
Right.
With people kind of, so, I mean, I'm sure there's more in your future and you like it.
I do like it, yeah.
So contact Clayton for any interviews.
Send interview requests my way.
Yeah. Good Morning America. Get him on, all these places. So what's next for you? Do you have kind of like goals or dreams? I mean, of course you do, but like, what are they?
Just keep running my business for now and thinking about, what retirement might look like, but that's a while off for me. I can't.
But still plan ahead, right? Yeah.
Where, like, even, we have a lot of family ties that keep us here, and I mean that in a positive way.
Yeah.
But thinking ahead 10, 15, 20 years, where would it make sense to live like somewhere that it doesn't get as cold or as hot as it does here?
Is there anywhere that could possibly be on the radar?
The big island of Hawaii comes to mind.
Oh,
they have
very cool.
Lovely weather there.
My sister lives in Hawaii. She's been there 20 years, maybe 21 years at this point.
Yeah.
And she says it's amazing. It's paradise.
Yeah, it really is. And our dogs are all pretty old, so but I'm very interested in continuing to have rescue dogs, and especially older ones, because those are the ones that usually get left at the shelter.
Yep.
And I'm also fortunate that we have a really close friend who's also our veterinarian.
Oh, nice.
So if I run across a dog that maybe needs some more advanced health care, we can make that happen. So maybe
a little mini sanctuary for seniors?
Something like that.
Yeah, I want that too. With the latest Hurricane Milton that was coming in, there's a rescue that is in Venice, Florida, that I just follow on Instagram, and they have all the seniors and, all these, all these little chihuahuas that are dumped in like Southern Florida and stuff. And I had contacted them prior, and I said, do you guys have a plan? Because I think they're about 42-ish dogs right now. And I told Dan, I was like, do not be surprised if 42 dogs and those people show up here for a few days, because I know we are not the closest thing, but we have a space for a bunch of little decrepit 42 little seniors. We can fit them in.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's the thing with senior dogs is like 1, 10, it really doesn't make a difference because they like to sleep and they're pretty easygoing.
Right.
And the ones that are deaf, don't bark at the mailman or hear the doorbell, or they just want to eat and snuggle up and sleep. And so they're pretty simple, I feel like.
They
now,
are.
Puppies, that's different.
It's a different story.
That's a different story. But seniors, man, they are the best. I love that. I love that you would love to have a little something, maybe a little sanctuary of some sort.
Yep.
Keep that going. Yeah. Well, maybe we can combine forces, because it's always on my radar. Dan's like, are we going to keep having dogs forever? I'm like, no. And then like another one finds. But yeah, the seniors, I mean, Dan loves them too, but I just love them. Yeah. I just love them. And it kills me when you hear like, 14-year-old, and they're like, hey, we're done with it. And it's like,
I know.
How did you?
Yeah.
I'll never understand it, but, and way back when it first started, you said, when you think you've heard it all and then you hear something else in rescue, that you think you've seen the worst or heard the worst, and then something else, tops it. And it's just, it's a tough space, but, people that do it, amazing. So
absolutely.
Yeah. And you guys would be awesome at it. I mean, you already have your little mini sanctuary right now with your 7th. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Well, I've enjoyed chatting with you.
I've enjoyed it too.
I'm so appreciative of you guys being in our lives and, taking your time out of your life to come and do this too. Because I think it's so important, again, that, coming to the table and realizing the similarities and realizing that there's similar successes, similar struggles.
Yes.
And kind of humanizing things again and getting people to, kind of take a break and pause for a moment and to just realize that, you're talking about people, you're talking about humans.
That's right.
And they have feelings and they go through all the same similar things. So it really, I think, is an important thing to get these amazing stories out there. And I'm always blown away by the stories that I've heard as far as like even just the talent that's been brought to the table. So I'm always like, man, my story would not be as good. So again, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for doing this, and thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Gosh, of course. All right, cool.
All right.
Bye, guys.